All right. Hello, everybody. We're here for another edition of Newrez Voices, and I'm super excited today for our guest. We've got Joshua Bishop, who is our COO of servicing and just leads a huge part of our team member base, millions of customers across America who are serviced by Newrez. And we got so much to cover today. But Joshua, first of all, just thank you again for joining us.
Dave, thanks for having me. Look forward to conversation today and look forward to, what we can get out of it.
Yeah. So let's start from the beginning for people who aren't familiar with you. You've got such a big job with our team. So maybe you can talk about like how do you come to be the COO of servicing? What does your career journey look like and how did you end up here with us at Newrez?
No, thank you very much, Dave. So I've been in the industry a little over 20 years. Like many that are probably watching this today, I started on the telephones. So I started in collections at an early age and really started to, get the joy of it, which sounds really weird, but I really enjoyed talking to customers, really helping them with their debts at the time. And then I got really good at it. I was very competitive at a young age and always wanted to be number one on the leaderboard, always wanted to make sure that I was the top collector for the month. And so I did that for about 6 months. And a really interesting kind of what I'll call fork in the road of my career came. And I had my manager's manager at the time come to me and say, "Hey, we want you to step up and be a supervisor." And I said, "Oh, absolutely not. No, no. I never want to manage people. I want to be an individual contributor my whole life. I just want to come in every day, collect my dollars, go home, and hopefully get a nice bonus at the end of the month." And so he said, "Okay, respect that." About a month later, came back to me the exact same conversation. It was a little different conversation. And it's one that I remember, and it kind of changed my career by getting me to move into management. Said in conversation, "We want you to manage people." Talked me up a little bit. He's like, "We can have 80 of you. We would have a massive collection department and be able to create more revenue for the overall organization." And so I said, "I still want to be an individual contributor." He's like, "Okay, well, do me a favor." He said, "Do it for 90 days. On the 91st day, if you do not like what you're doing and you don't like managing people, then I'll put you back as an individual contributor. I'll never ask you again." And I said, "It's my boss's boss. I can do a favor for him for 90 days. I can do anything for 90 days." And so I did it for 90 days, really enjoyed it. It was interesting because you weren't tied to the phone all day long, but you were still doing escalation calls. But more importantly, you started working with people. And that's really what started my career in trying to understand what motivates people, what made people tick to a certain extent, and really what made them successful. And that kind of, continued on for a few years. I mean, I got promoted a couple of times running operations in collections and customer service. And then in 2008, the crash started coming. The company I was working for at the time had 7 sites in North America and saw that the markets were getting unstable and decided to consolidate down to 3 sites. And sadly, the site that I was responsible for here in Greenville, South Carolina, was going to close and relocate to Houston, and that was going to be their headquarters. I didn't want to move at the time, and so I was working for them, kind of winding down the site here in Greenville. And my vice president, my boss's boss, came to me at that time and said, "Well, what you gonna do when we close it down?" I said, "I don't know, guess I'll find another job somewhere here in Greenville." And he said, "Well, I want to start a company and I want you to run it for me. I want to start small and I want to build it from there." And it was a law firm that specialized debt collection, litigation, some foreclosure, bankruptcy. And so started that, started going really well. Obviously, during that time, there was a lot of debt, there was a lot of distress. And so we were there to really try to help people, but also grow an organization. We got really good at it, was the number one in our network of attorneys. And then 2010 was another fork in the road. He comes to me and says, "Hey, we've got this government agency starting up. May have not heard of it. It's called the CFPB. And it's not so much about just making money, it's also being compliant and staying in business." And so he's like, "I need you to switch from operations to build out a compliance management system because that's what the CFPB expects at the time." And I was like, "I got to go research this. I don't know how to build this out." And so we ended up building it out. And so I took a different path at that point, stepped away from operations that I'd done for a little over 7 years and built out a compliance management system. Fast forward a little bit to 2014, had a really smart guy called Will Traber called me, who is a recruiter here at Newrez, and talked me into this great new position that they had started here at Newrez that was regulatory change manager. And at the time, there were so many different regulations coming down from various different regulatory bodies. So they needed somebody to come in and manage that from a compliance perspective, but also be able to operationalize it. And so I talked to the owner of the company at the time and told him about the opportunity. And he said, look, I think it sounds like this is a growing company. I'm at the last part of my career. I'm planning to wind this down in a few years. I think that you should take this opportunity, which was very hard at the time, hearing that the company that we had built was probably going to end up getting sold in a couple of years. But I really respected him by saying, hey, I think this is a good opportunity. I think you should go and take it. And so I did. I started Newrez in 2014 and was kind of a compliance department of one, and then just listened, learned so much about the operation. During the time of 2014 to 2018, there was so much change going on in the industry, so much change in the market. So I learned so much about the servicing organization, learned so much about compliance, and then continue to build it. And then another great opportunity came up when we had got acquired by Rhythm Capital, at that point called New Residential Investment Corp, and kind of brought New Penn at the time and Shell Point Mortgage Servicing together to create Newrez. And they had asked me to be the chief operating officer for both originations and servicing. So it was a great opportunity for me to kind of step onto the other side as well, learn originations, partner with great people like, Bob Johnson and Debbie Knotts and others on that side, and really learn about things that I really never had responsibility for in the past. And so had a great team that I, inherited on the origination side, and really learned so much. And then we had made a couple of acquisitions. The company had grown. And then late 2021, we had expanded the servicing organization by bringing in the Caliber Home Loans into the ecosystem. We were bringing two teams together, two different systems together. There was a lot of change going on in the organization. And so I was asked to take over as chief operating officer for servicing and bring together a management team, be able to get back to one system from a servicing platform, and then be able to grow it from a customer experience perspective, from a performance perspective, and then ultimately a risk and control perspective, because that's where my heart had been for the prior 10 years. And so that's like where I came from, compliance all the way to operations, and then just leading a great team by a bunch of great leaders.
Yeah. Well, that's an amazing story. Thanks for sharing that. That was awesome. I didn't know all of that. And it does strike me that it's similar to the theme that we hear from a lot of leaders over the last couple of years doing these interviews is that, you didn't really have a career plan per se. You just showed up, worked hard every day, did a great job, and opportunities present themselves. And you just, for lack of a better word, kind of go with the flow where it takes you and good things happen. I mean, is that kind of the way you would experience it and how you would share that with other younger team members or new to the business people?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think, no matter where you start in this industry, because no one goes to college for mortgage lending or mortgage servicing, right? You fall into this industry in one way or another, whether it be in sales or on the phones or in a corporate position. And then you just kind of learn and gain from it from there. I've been at this organization for almost 12 years, in the industry for 20, but I'm still learning things different every single day. Not only in how our organization evolves and how technology evolves, but also how customer evolve as well. The way that we interact with customers today is very different than we did 10 years ago. If we are sitting down talking about a process or talking about a problem, if the question comes up of why do we do it this way, if the answer is always, well, that's the way we've always done it, that's the wrong answer, right? Figuring out something new and coming in every day, as Shane Ross, my boss, says, putting on your hard hat and rolling up your sleeves and getting in the trenches with everyone. That's really what it takes to be able to create a good environment, but also learn something new every day. Find a way to make your way in an organization and make it better, hopefully by the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. And look, I mean, you kind of mentioned some of the different people that, when you're part of a large company, you get to interact with a lot of people who have different specialties and learn about that and see what they do. And so I'm really grateful for the opportunity that I'm on the origination side of the business, but I get to hear about all the great things that your team is doing and like you say, the initiatives to drive the business forward. And one of the things that it's always striking me about the servicing side is just the massive level of complexity and detail. And it always impresses me with yourself that you just seem to have like this photographic recall on so many varied topics and metrics and whatnot. And so I did want to ask you, as a leader, as a high performer, are there any tricks that you have to have that retention level? Is it just, hey, I've been in the business a long time, or are there certain ways that you recall things or commit them to memory?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And to a certain extent, that's how I, historically have taught myself. So I'll go back to 2014 when Will had called me to kind of come and build this compliance group out and regulatory change. is I had done some parts of mortgage, right? But I've never done escrow and the cash operations from a hierarchy perspective and REO and other things like that. And my role at that time was really about compliance. And so for months prior to starting this job, I literally read the CFPB regs start to finish like 3 times, right? I could starting at 1024 30 and going all the way to 1024 41 and just committing those to memories because those are foundations that I still rely on every day of why we do things or why we don't do things. Obviously, my current role, I still think about those things every day and it really empowers me to be able to make decisions quickly knowing the right way to do it based on the regs. But now also from an operations perspective, I'm really big on what I always call my walking around numbers, right? And so I've got your KPI reports, performance reports that I look at every single morning. Because if somebody's in a meeting and says, well, how many inbound calls, do we take on average? I want to say on an average month, we take around 350,000 inbound calls, right? Because I want to know that's what it is. And every one of those numbers is obviously a customer behind it, but also a cost of doing business. What I always say is a potential improvement that we can make because how can we stop people from having to call us, right? How do we make things more self-serve and be able to provide better experience for customers? And so for me, I do spend a lot of times in reports. First thing in the morning is generally the first thing I do every morning is look at all of my performance reports, my KPI reports, because those are going to be things that I'm going to be thinking about through the day that I have to make a decision on either a customer experience initiative or a end of month plan because we may fall on a Saturday and how are we going to get people in on overtime? How are we going to make sure that we get every customer help before the end of the month, right? And so that really for me, it is, committing things to memory, but also keeping it fresh with the most up-to-date information every day.
Right. Yeah, I mean, two things that I kind of heard from you there. One is that there is no shortcut. Like you had to commit the time to read the guidelines, which just sounds awful to me to read the CFPB guidelines 3 times. But that's why we have great people like you doing those jobs. And I think sometimes people forget that folks like yourself are leading large teams, leading really important parts of the business because there's all these unseen commitments that are made to learn and understand. And then, like you say, it never ends. Like every day, you're looking at the numbers and being deep into the business to really understand how things are working and how it's impacting team members and customers.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important to be able, what I like to be is fact driven and data driven behind every decision that we have, right? Never leading with
Yeah.
emotion, never making decisions based on a feeling, having data to be able to back up a decision so that if it's 6 months down the line, it could be the wrong decision that we made, but we had an intentional reason to do what we did. And we made that decision based on facts and data so that that way we hopefully made the right decision. But if we ever need to come back to it, we can at least say why we made that decision if it's ever questioned by somebody else, or if we just want to learn, we had a lesson learned from that. Okay, well, next time we need to add in this piece of data, or we need to think about it this way. Every day, data tells me something new, allows us to make what we call smart decisions versus decisions just based on a feeling or an action.
Right. Yeah. And look, I mean, it's an interesting point because we do, as leaders, as business operators, we're invested in making sure the company is successful. So we have to do fact-based decisions and be able to look at the data. At the same time, we have to make our customers and our team members feel awesome. And one of our core values is to care fiercely. And we've talked about how big your team is for scale. So we would like to kind of understand from you, how do you lead in a way that inspires people to care fiercely every day about their team members and the customers? And how do you think that plays through? How do you think that, every customer then experiences it that way?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a great question. The way that, because I did start on the telephones, right? So I think that I do have a different perspective versus someone that came into this industry in a management position, but kind of working my way up. The way that I always try to lead every day is I'm never going to ask somebody to do something that I wouldn't do myself, right? There's been times where it's end of month. We've got payments that are being posted in our cash room. I'm messaging my direct that's managing that group and saying, hey, how many payments we got? I'm coming over. I'm going to post some payments with you guys, right? If there are things that need to be done in the organization that I can do based on my knowledge and my level of access and experience, I want to be there doing it with them. And so The way that I direct my team is, we're in the trenches with them. We're going to make sure that they don't think that we're just sitting in an ivory tower and we're not there alongside them. We're going to work with them at the individual, what I'll call widget level, but also at the overall level. And then I think holistically at the macro level is we want our team members to truly believe and understand that the decisions that we're making for the organization not only have our customers' best interest, but our employees' best interest. When we're thinking about changing processes, how is that going to impact customers and how's it going to impact employees? Is that going to make our employees' jobs easier? Is it going to make them more efficient? Is it going to cause them less stress or less complaints on the telephone that they have to de-escalate? So whenever we're thinking of changing processes, we're changing policies or technology, which is a big change these days, is being able to understand not only from a customer experience, how's that going to impact the accounts, how's that going to impact the communications that we have with them, but is it going to be well received by our employees? And how do we communicate the reasons why? And we do quarterly town halls with every single servicing employee. So we've got about 2,700 servicing employees total, and they join a quarterly town hall. And Shane and I will, go through performance from a servicing perspective, but also the enhancements that we're doing in technology and really connecting the why we're doing those things. And obviously AI is a big part of that. And it's been something that we had to make sure that was well received by our employees. And coming out very early on with our team members and saying, we want to embrace AI. We think that it's a great way to make us more efficient. We think it's a great way to reduce our cost of service. But more importantly, it's a great way to make your jobs easier. And being just very blunt with them is we're not here to have AI replace you. We're here to continue to grow and not have to replicate you. If we can continue to maintain the organization at the size that it is, continue to grow our servicing organization from a loan count perspective and from a complexity perspective that can assist customers with new products or new potential ways to communicate with us, that'll allow us to be more efficient and be able to make our employees' jobs easier and not have to continue to replicate them from a hiring perspective.
Right. Yeah, I love what you said there about being able to explain the why. And I think it really ties back to your experience as a leader because you've done so many of these jobs, because you go so deep on the business to be able to explain to team members why things are happening, why change is happening, because change can be scary, whether it's AI or process changes or whatever. And to have a leader who can articulate, hey, this is the change we're making and why we're doing it in a way that's actually real to that team member and not just like hypothetical or spreadsheet based is super powerful. And so, kudos to you on everything that you bring to the team for doing that. And I just know that makes a massive impact. And then to the point of my earlier question of just how does it play through to customers? I mean, having somebody on the phone, a servicing team member then who's confident in what they're doing and feels great about the reasons why things are happening, that's gonna come through on the phone. People can feel confidence and happiness with what they're doing, pride.
No, absolutely.
One of the things that I'm super excited about is the way that we're building the next generation of team members. So we've talked about the changes in AI, and you referenced earlier the way that you did things 20 years ago is a lot different than the way we do them today. And 20 years from now, they'll probably be unrecognizable to us. So we're building this next generation and teaching them. And servicing is one of the places where I think a lot of people come into this business without experience. There's a lot of entry level opportunities to get in. And you talked about your own journey. So maybe you can talk a little bit about today how you and your team bring in new people and what that career progression looks like, how people career path with intentionality
Yeah,
and
no,
how
I
that
mean,
helps our customers over time.
yeah, no, absolutely. Obviously, as a growing organization, we've had to hire a lot of people over the last 5 years. So, one of the biggest things is that we work with our recruiting team to say, look, we're not trying to fit everybody into this box, right? We're looking for one or two skills that maybe not be mortgage servicing experience, right? It may not be customer service experience, but it could be a skill on analytical mindset, or it could be mathematical abilities that they have. But using that one skill and being able to add that to the team, because we can teach other skills, right? We can teach call flow. We can teach how to read an escrow analysis. But if they come in with an analytical mindset or they come in with really good people skills, we can teach them the other skills. And so what's really important is the foundation that we set of really finding people that truly can be able to articulate a problem and a solution. That's number one, especially in the call center perspective, but also somebody that cares enough to go the extra mile to be able to find that solution. And that's one of the biggest ways that we recruit is not looking for 10 qualifications to meet the one job position, but really looking for that one or two pieces of the puzzle that we think we're either missing or that we think that we can grow the other skills on. And then what I learned at an early age is because when I said I got into this new role of a supervisor, I'd never really had managed people from a corporate level like that in a call center and figuring out my way of doing that. And so what I did at that time is I was just trying to figure out what made people tick. And what I learned really on, probably within that first probably 15 days, is the way I managed Dave was very different than the way that I managed Chase because Dave and Chase are two different people. And so this is going to sound really corny, but what I did is I sat each person down individually in a one-on-one and I asked them just a point blank question of what motivates them. If you ask people generally what motivates them, they're going to give you one or two questions. They're going to say money or success. Okay, well, yeah, but not money or success isn't really what motivates you. It's the next layer down of what motivates them. So I'd say, so if somebody said money motivates me, okay, what are you trying to do with that money? And so I got different answers. Some people are saying, I want to buy a house, my first house. I want to buy a car. I want to send my kid to college. I want to go on a family vacation. And so at that time, I said, okay, we're going to print that out and we're going to stick it right below your monitor. So every day you're looking at that money driven success for you. And that's what you're going to focus on. That's what's going to keep you going during those hard calls, those bad days. Just stare at that. And then the next week, we took it to the next layer down and said, okay, you want to buy your first house. All right, I'm going to be really personal with you. Where are you at with your finances today? What do you need to get there to buy that house? What's your down payment look like? What's your target payment? All right, that means you need $1,000 a month. Our goal is $1,500 a month in your bonus every month. And here's what your run rate is to get there. So I would work with them every single month on what that looked like. Same way with people for success, right? Success, the people aren't driven by money, they're by success. And generally the next layer down of that is people that are either motivated by moving up into a management position because they really want to manage people and train people and help people succeed, or people that really are motivated by appreciation or words of affirmation, right? A lot of times just telling somebody a great job is also the exact same of giving them $1,000 bonus because those two people could be motivated by very separate things. And so really understanding what that is. And so the people that were really motivated by the words of affirmation or the good jobs is every morning in the morning huddle, shout them out if they were on the top of the leaderboard, because I knew that was going to motivate them more than being on the top of the leaderboard from a money perspective. And so one of the things now managing larger teams is really empowering my team members at the executive level down to the individual contributor level of finding what motivates you, finding that next layer down that's going to connect you with coming in every day, and then figuring out what that next layer of success looks like for you, whether it's financial independence, buying a new house, buying a new car, paying for a vacation, or looking for success and moving up, different department management skills, moving over to a different role, figuring out what that is, and then being able to create that career path and or financial independence path for those individual people is really how you try to create a team that's all motivated, that also is leading towards the same goal. And hopefully that's the strategy that you're setting as a leader.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And so is that something there as a leader of leaders for you? I totally see how you did that as a line level leader to be able to spend that time with each person. How do you push that out, to be kind of a best practice among all your leaders? Is that something that you have some kind of systems around or that you regularly check in with your leaders to see how they're engaging in that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, obviously, it's leading by example. So, with my directs, meeting with them, understanding their department dynamics, understanding the different skill sets from a management perspective within those individual departments, but also understanding them, understanding what motivates them, what's the best management type for them. Because, the way I talk to my head of escrow and the way that I talk to my head of operational controls, very different types of people, right? So, understanding what's the best management for them, what's going to motivate them to come in every day, do a good job, and have a good relationship with me. That's the next thing. And then understanding how their departments react. And so A lot of times it's understanding like the way that we manage customer service and collections is very different than the way we manage like foreclosure and bankruptcy. So we set up different types of programs, different types of skills that allow us to not only look at the individual department, but also how do we set smart goals for that department from a management perspective, from a compensation perspective, and from leadership and a growth perspective. So we set certain programs, like in our default areas, we built a program called Arise. And that is a program where everybody within the default operations group can apply to be in it. And they get mentored, they attend meetings, they attend trainings, they get special process improvement training. And so they're gaining different skills that can not only help them as an individual contributor be better in their roles, but they're also meeting other senior leaders. They're learning different relationships. They're learning how to present to people. And it allows them to grow both individually, but also as a team. Same way within some of the other groups, like what we are called Vibe Hive, where we're looking at it from a more motivational perspective, where we're doing what we'll call extracurricular things, whether it be spirit days, whether it be lunches, lunch and learns, helping them understand that it's not just about coming in, taking telephone calls every day, because that is important because that's what serves our customers, but also what are they getting out of it from a employee perspective, from a motivation perspective, and then how do we use that to continue to drive performance on a daily basis? Because hopefully we've got happy, motivated individuals down at the line level that continue to make it its way up all the way to me, that we've got a really good servicing organization that's all going in the same direction and also has a really good culture that's really making this care fiercely, attitude across 200 or 2,700 people.
Yeah. You know what I love about that too, Joshua, is that we've talked about in the past with other folks that have joined us here on Newrez Voices about one of the superpowers of Newrez is the diversity of it, of just people from different backgrounds. And we've got sites across the country and it's been merger and acquisition. So there's this melting pot of people and ideas. And the only way to unleash that is by recognizing each individual for what their strengths are and what's going to motivate them. So I think what you're doing is just a really powerful example of what we all have to aspire to as leaders, of just focusing on the individual and their story and what's going to bring them forward and maximize their potential, and then develop them and help them see how the current role can do that, but also their career path. So that amazing, awesome stuff. Switching gears a little bit just to kind of the operational level. Again, I'm on the origination side and we're always bringing in new customers. And particularly, we bring in a lot of customers who weren't originated with Newrez in a lot of cases, or even if they were, there's a transition from the euphoria, hopefully, that we create when somebody buys a new home or they refinance and they're all excited about that. And then now they have to get onboarded and it's a new kind of relationship, a new phase. So talk a little bit about how you bring process to make it really smooth, but also the new res culture to let people know, hey, we're here for life. We want to keep you for life. What does that look like for you and the team?
Yeah, I think for specifically for those customers that didn't originate with us, which is a large part of our customers, it's really that first impression. You only get one chance to make a first impression, and that's going to be with onboarding. It really starts off operationally with how we're receiving the data, how we're receiving the information, and then the steps and protocols that we go to make sure that that's loaded quickly, because we don't want customers to log in and we're not ready for them because we haven't loaded their information. But one, and most importantly, that we do it accurately, right? That we've got all the right information from their closing, we've got all of their balances correctly, we've got their information set up correctly. Because if any of those things go wrong, we're most likely going to have a bad first impression. So that's really the first key operationally, is getting that loan boarding set up appropriately, timely, accurately, and then we're ready to hit the ground running with that customer. And then the second thing is communication. Communication is key to every relationship. And when we say relationship, we truly mean we want that relationship for life. Whether that means the steady Eddie customer that just wants a 30-year mortgage and wants to pay it off in 30 years, or the customer that's going to come back to us for multiple products, whether it be a HELOC or maybe at some point a personal loan, or coming in through a refinance because they've either had a change in life growing up or growing down in the size of their house or complexity from a location perspective. And so understanding that we only have that first chance to create that relationship through the appropriate communication. And so one of the things that we've been doing over the last few years is making that communication more appropriate. The way that we introduce ourselves and have a first impression with a customer that didn't choose us versus a customer that did choose us, or the customer that got service transferred to us. Those are all three very different customers and how we interact with those. And so personalizing our communication with them, welcoming them to Newrez if it's their first time with us, being able to provide them the tools from a digital perspective, whether it be in our Easy Hub portal or the mobile app, those are really important. But also the first letter and the first email that they get has to be personalized to them, has to help them understand the top three things that they need to do in order to set themselves up for success with Newrez. And then also make sure that they understand how to contact us if they ever have any problems, whether they go through some level of distress like loss mitigation, or whether they just have a question about their escrow, which can be very confusing, especially to first time home buyers. And really, it's setting it up operationally from that perspective, and then making sure that the communication perspective is on point within that first 30 days. And then for every customer that comes new to us, we do a welcome call. And if it's a first time customer that's not been introduced to Newrez, whether it be because they are first time through one of our origination channels that we originate by others, or it's a service transfer, we want to, create that white glove experience where we're calling them, we're one, welcoming them to Newrez, we're hoping set the stage for a long relationship and a positive relationship, being able to answer any questions that they may be worried about from a service transfer perspective. But we also go the extra mile to walk through their loan to make sure that we do have all the right information, making sure that they're confident in the information and the data that we received, and then asking if there's anything that we can help them with, whether it's being setting up on ACH, setting up on e-statement, or getting logged into the website. Those are the things that we feel like if we can get a level of trust with customers where they can give us their routing and account number and trust that we're going to take the ACH out on time every time, they're going to trust that we're going to send them their e-bill statement every month at the same time and make sure that it's clear and easy to read, and that they trust that we've got their security for their personal information at heart by allowing us to have them log into the Easy Hub portal. So creating that level of trust is really key for us, and utilizing KPIs and metrics to measure outside of just point in time surveys is that's how we really want to build that relationship. Is can that customer trust that we have their best interests at heart? Can they trust that we have their security at the forefront of their personal information? And do we care? And I think that if we can set that all up right at the beginning, welcome them to Newrez and set a good expectation, we'll have a long relationship with that customer, and hopefully from their perspective, a very positive relationship.
Yeah. Gosh, I love that. But there's a lot to unpack there that we're doing, and grateful for all the things that our servicing team is doing to kind of set that table for the customer life. That's awesome. So going like another level of depth with you, I was on a call with some of our originators a few weeks back, and they were talking about the fact of how they sell the idea of recasting. They're actively selling this feature that in some ways is unique to us because we retain the servicing over time and we can perform that. So I just wanted to ask you, maybe you could talk a little bit about what recasting is, and also kind of how we uniquely help people with that in the team, and also for our team members at home listening to this, what they could do to better set that up for success with the servicing team.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Recasts are a great opportunity to help lower the customer's payment over time if they have a larger down payment that they can put in and then use that to recast. So I'll just give a quick high level example. So let's say you're at a point in time where you're both buying and selling a house at the same time. And you're going in, you're getting an origination for a new house that you're moving into with the contingency that house is going to sell within 30, 60 days post origination. So you know that you've got some equity built up that you're not able to unlock yet because you haven't sold that house, but you're moving into this new house with an origination. And so a lot of time customers will then post origination, once they get in to their new house 30, 60 days later, they've sold their prior house. Now they have what a large down payment from the equity that they had on their prior house, and they want to pay that down to the principal. So very high level example would be they have $300,000 in UPB that they originated their new home with. They have $100,000 from their prior sale of their prior house. They want to pay that $100,000 to lower the principal down to $200,000 for a UPB, and then spread that over the remaining term, lowering their monthly payment for the P&I portion of that over time. And so generally the way that works, and the best way to explain that, is one, make sure that a recast is allowable by the investor. That's always one of the big things. For the most, what's the time frames in which you could do it? Different investors could say they can do it as early as 30 days after origination. Some say that they need to wait within 90 days. And then there could be differing amounts based on investors. Some allow down to $5,000, some have $10,000. And so really connecting with us at the front, for those that are really talking about those at origination, definitely talking about the overall process of how to request a recast, notifying us either through a contact us on the portal or reaching out to us by phone. Our customer service team is able to walk you through it and then be able to really explain the process. The process has definitely changed a lot over the last year and a half. It used to be a little bit more simple where you could call in, request it, and sign just a little piece of paper. Over the last year, that has changed to where we actually have to have a pseudo modification form that has to be sent out to them via DocuSign. They have to electronically sign it, or we can send it out to them in paper, and it has to be notarized by us when we sign it, and then we have to have that recorded. And so there's a little bit of changes there that elongates the time period. We used to be able to get recast done within about 14 days. Now it's averaging about 30 days. We want to do everything we can from a technology perspective, like we talked about with the DocuSign, things on our portal to make that a little bit more easy and make that more expeditious for customers so that they don't have to wait to get that benefit of the lower payment. Yeah. It's a great option for customers that have a larger amount they can put down to their UPB and overall reduce the overall monthly payment for the rest of the life of that mortgage.
Yeah. Super helpful. Thank you for that. And where would team members find that information online? Where could they get educated on the process and connect and all that is?
No, that's great. That's a great question. One of the biggest things that we've tried to really focus on over the last 18 months, specifically from a customer experience, is education. I always like to say if I could have every customer that's going through originations go through Mortgage 101 and have various different tests that they have to take and learn a lot of good stuff. But we know that's not the world that we live in. But so what we have done is from a servicing perspective is said, we want to be very transparent with our customers, be very open with them on our processes, our policies, hopefully educate them on the various different processes. So if you go to newrez.com and at the top of it, it'll say Help Center. We've created a help portal that has various different topics. We'll walk you through everything from a service transfer into us, fees, and how to explain those fees and avoid them, loss mitigation, disaster relief, as well as recast. So if you go into that home hub within the Help Center and be able to see the various different aspects there, we have one for recast. It'll walk you through the process. It'll tell you everything from start to finish and also give you some information on who to contact within our servicing organization that can help you start the process, whether that be our customer service call center or whether the Contact Us portal within the Easy Hub.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks. So I want to switch to another topic that I know you are neck deep in, and I learn something new every time I hear you talk about it. And that's the topic of AI and mortgage servicing. You've been a leader within Newrez and probably the industry in figuring out how to, operationalize it, how to empower our team members, all these kind of things. So could you spend a couple minutes maybe talking about your experience with AI, some of the big things that we're doing that you're most excited about? And then from a 10,000-foot view, where do you see all this going, that being AI in the mortgage industry in the next 12 months? What's your kind of read on what people should be looking for?
Yeah, no, AI's been very, very interesting over the last, I'll even say 3 years, ever since OpenAI kind of started and built ChatGPT, which I caught on very early on because, like I said, when I was reading all of those regulations, it'd have been nice to have ChatGPT back in the day that could have summarized some of it for me. And so a lot of times in the past few years, using it personally is kind of what really drove me and my team to really start digging in and getting on the ground floor very early on from a servicing AI perspective. And so obviously coming from a risk management background, I really wanted to start slow, right? It's always like crawl, walk, run mentality in rolling anything out. We never wanted to be the mortgage company that threw all of our data into an AI bot and then had it start making decisions. That would have been really inappropriate and very risky from that perspective. And so we really sat down as a management team and really thought about how do we make the biggest impact internally that's not customer facing, that is not going to give customers wrong information or anything to that extent. Because it was very early on, about 18 months ago, when we didn't have all the tools in the toolkit that we do now. And so we worked with our tech team, who's absolutely fantastic, and we built Resi. And so Resi AI was an internal kind of bot that we created. We took all of our policies, our procedures, our guidebooks, our delegation of authority matrices, and put that all on prem within an AI bot. And then we created a little Teams channel where our agents are able to go in and ask questions. Because what we wanted to do as a management team is says, how can we empower our agents to be able to respond quickly to customers when they're on the phone, but also more importantly, more accurately, right? Instead of going into the system and trying to guess where something is, or if they have a complex question about escrow, instead of having to put their customer on hold for 2 to 3 minutes and going asking their supervisor, and if their supervisor is really good, they're probably helping somebody else, so that person's having to wait as well, and really being able to speed up the amount of call time that we have and be able to help customers quicker. And so that was our first thing that we did. It was great because not only did it empower agents by getting the correct information, it also taught them where they can find that information in the future, whether it be in a policy, procedure, or a guidebook. So that helped us reduce the overall complaints around unable to answer question or gave inaccurate information, because everything that we do with AI, we want to be able to have a metric that we can track the efficiency of it. And so we were able to see about a 20% decrease in our hold time, which was great because that means customers aren't having to be placed on hold. They're not having to have longer conversations than they want to with us, and we're able to more accurately respond to them. And then we said, okay, what's the next phase of this? AI can do more than this. What can we get more comfortable with? And so the next thing that we did is we looked at our call drivers. And so me and my management team, we sit down almost every month and we go through the top 10 call drivers. Why are customers having to call us? 10 years ago, every inbound call was a gift, right? That's because we didn't have as much self-serve, we didn't have as much technology, and for the most part, those people were probably calling in to make a payment, and we wanted to get that payment for our customers and for our investors. Well, now we look at it as every inbound call is a failure. That's because we either didn't appropriately or proactively communicate what's going on in that customer's account. There was an issue with the account where there was something that we weren't able to explain through the billing statement or through an email, or we didn't have the opportunity for that customer to self-serve on our mobile app or our Easy Hub portal. And so that's what we go through these call drivers every month. And obviously, the number one call driver was payments. We take about 350 to 400,000 calls a month, and about over half of them, about 60% of them, are just customers calling in to make a payment. Even though we have so many different options, we got 10 different options to make a payment, all electronically, over the phone, over the internet, through our portal or our mobile app, or mailing in a payment. Some customers just want to call somebody, they want to get that confirmation number and hear that their payment is now due for the following month. It's just a comfort level with them. And we were able to partner with the company and develop what we call Alex, which is our digital AI assistant. And so it's customers, when they call in, they're given the option. We never want to force customers to speak with AI if they're not comfortable with it. But we developed a digital assistant that allows customers to call in and ask very general, basic questions about their account, but also get their payments. And so that allows them to very quickly get served by a digital assistant versus waiting for a customer service agent. And so we built it out, again, crawl, walk, run is we built it out with just contractual payments first. We saw really good traction with that and not a lot of transfer rate. We said, okay, what are the other reasons customers are calling in? They want to make additional principal or they want to make additional escrow. So over time, we added that. And they want to make set future state payments. So over time, we added that. So, going into March, really, really pleased with February. So if you think about, we started this in May of last year. From May to January, we took about 105,000 calls in Alex, our digital assistant. In February alone, we had 115,000 calls and over 115 million collected on the digital assistant. So we're getting really good adoption rates. Customers are really liking it. They get their confirmation. I actually love listening. 100% of these calls are recorded because we treat them just like customer service agent. I do enjoy listening to some of them, hearing customers tell Alex thank you, asking Alex how his day is, thanking them for the help. It's really interesting hearing it. And I really give kudos to the team because they spent so much time making sure that the digital assistant was personalized, common language, not jargon, but even going to this standpoint of mimicking call center noise in the background. So that as the digital assistant's processing that payment, the customer is able to hear something. So it knows it's still there and it wasn't hung up on. So just going the extra mile from a personalized touch, we've really seen adoption. It's been really great for our call centers. And then the last thing that we really focused on is the call center and how we can make them more efficient. Because again, we always look at our average speed of answer because we want to make that as low as possible. We don't want customers having to hold when they call us. And like I said, I grew up in the call centers, and I remember my first supervisor job, I was teaching my team type and talk, right? Get that wrap time down. But if you're doing that, you're typing and talking, you're not fully able to focus on that customer 100% because you're worried that you're going to miss something and you're going to fail your QC score or something to that extent. And so we worked with our telephony platform and we developed an AI platform that allows AI to sit on top of the call and listen to both the agent and the customer. And then at the end of it, it'll summarize exactly what happened on that call in very common to read, doesn't use abbreviations, very specifically says what happened on that call. And what I also love about it is if not everything was resolved on that call, let's say they had something that they were requiring a new escrow analysis or a payment reapplication. At the end of that summarization, I'll actually tell the agent what they need to do in order to make sure that that customer's issue or concern is fully resolved. And so allows us to capture customer sentiment, allows us to capture any potential expression of dissatisfaction, but also action items that need to take place on that call. So it's just a really great tool to not only make us more efficient, but also make sure that we're following through and resolving everything for that customer when they called in.
Yeah. Awesome, man. I learned a ton of stuff there. Just I feel like I'm hearing from you regularly and I learned new things. And that's just the speed of how things are moving. So on that topic of AI, you talked about it earlier, how your team members are perceiving it. How are you managing it right now? Where do you see it going in the next 12 months? And how do you see people being kind of hand in hand with AI to create a better experience to, as we say, empower team members?
Yeah, it's a great question. And one of the ways that we want to get our teams on board with AI is so we hold focus groups with them. Every department will have a focus group, and one of the topics in every focus group is how would you customer service agent or how would you foreclosure specialist one, how would you utilize AI? What would make your job easier if we had AI? So a lot of the things that we're doing is also suggestions that come from our individual contributors that are doing it every day, right? So they feel empowered to bring us suggestions that makes their job easier, that should hopefully make them more efficient and create less friction in the overall workplace from a technology perspective, from a customer perspective, all of that. Where I see it going is I think that we can do so much more with AI, and we're starting phase two of that within customer service. And so one of the things that we're building right now is dynamic workflow. You know, what a lot of people may not know is we've got over 150 different clients that we service for. And a lot of those clients have very different ways that calls need to be handled, certain things that they want said because of a branding, certain things that offers that they have from a repayment plan or a forbearance or a loan modification. And we want to be able to dynamically help those agents with those things, but also make sure that they're picking up on what the customer's saying and making that the best solution for them. So with dynamic workflows, it'll actually listen to what that customer's saying. And so if that customer calls in and sadly they've gone through some level of unemployment, it'll actually pop up because it knows the investor and it knows what they're able to qualify for and say, hey, offer that customer a 3-month unemployment forbearance because they stated they're unemployed. See if that will help them. If they're calling in and they're requesting escrow removal, it'll pull in the information from the system and say, hey, sorry, that customer hasn't been originated for more than 12 months. Tell them to call back in September because that's when they'll hit their anniversary and be eligible for escrow removal. So again, it's something that we can empower our agents to get quick information and direct them dynamically without them either A, having to remember what that client allows or going and looking at a matrix or a system that does it. Instead, it'll pop up right there for them. We're already on starting there with our expressions of dissatisfaction. So today, if a customer expresses any level of dissatisfaction, the AI agent will pop up and say, that's a complaint, and we're going to log it. That means the AI agent's going to log it for them. It's going to listen, it's going to categorize it correctly, and it's going to summarize that complaint and insert it for them. That was a big win that came from our call centers because it took them on average 90 seconds to log every expression of dissatisfaction, and that impacted their time to move to the next call. Now we have AI doing that for them for our customer service teams. And so utilizing AI to be more efficient is where we're going from a dynamic perspective in the call centers. Where we're going from back office functions is we focus so much on AI on our customers because that's we want to make the customer experience easier. We want to make the call centers teams less friction from the call to call. But we've then focused on the back end for our back office functions. And so what we're doing now is we're categorizing all of our inquiries and complaints via AI. If it's more than an 80% confidence rate, it's automatically logging it. It's directing it to the right person every time. And then we're monitoring that every day. So we were able to repurpose about 75 people that were literally just logging inquiries every day, opening up the mail, getting it to the right person. We were able to repurpose those people into other functions because now we have AI doing it. So we want to utilize that same technology for some of our other back office functions, whether that be imaging and loss mitigation, whether that be our foreclosure teams in doing chronologies or helping within our bankruptcy groups and doing ledgers, being able to utilize AI that can bring in more information, put it at the fingertips of our employees on the front line, and then be able to make their jobs 50 to 60% more efficient. It'll make their jobs much easier, be able to get through the day quicker, and be able to make our performance better for our clients and our customers.
Yeah. I've tons to pull out of everything that you shared there. I think the one of the things that comes really to the surface for me is the ability for team members to just be more present with customers. That there's so much information coming at us, and we're all guilty of when somebody's talking of trying to figure out what the next question should be or how we're going to respond. And AI can really do some of that work, like you say, of taking the notes. So you can really just listen to what people are saying and connect, which is what most people really want. If they're calling out, like you said, there's probably a problem and they just want someone to listen and help, and to be able to focus on that is super powerful.
Yeah, what we always say is our customer service agents, on average, take hundreds of calls a day, right? But they only take, hopefully, one call from that one customer, right? And so we want to make sure that we're setting the right experience for that customer when they called in. What we always say in our call centers is when a customer calls in, we want to make sure that we're focused on that customer, that situation, and what's going on with that individual customer's life. If there's some level of distress or there's been some type of loss, making sure we're expressing the right amount of empathy, making sure that we're providing solutions to that customer for whatever situation or problem that they may be facing, because that's what's really going to build that customer for life and build that trust with us from a Newrez perspective, because we do care and we want to make sure that customer understands that and feels that when they talk with us on the telephone. And when you're going call to call, it's very hard sometimes as a customer service agent remembering that every time. So utilizing AI to remind them, hey, make sure you're expressing empathy for that. Hey, make sure you're acknowledging that complaint. Hey, make sure that you're providing these solutions, right? Not necessarily correcting them, but really guiding them so that way we are focused on the customer and setting the right experience every call.
Yeah, love it. Another question, Joshua, here that probably pulls in a lot of the things that we've talked about today already. And that's the fact it's hard to go a week without reading some kind of article about the impact of escrow, taxes and insurance going up across the country, some more than other places in one of those areas. But really, it feels like universally people are being impacted by this. And I know your team on the front lines, a lot of times people are venting their frustration with taxes and insurance going up because they perceive it as their mortgage payment going up. So, all that said, maybe you could talk a little bit about how is the team receiving this information and hearing from customers, but then what are we doing to educate people, to help people manage around it, to make the best of the situation that they're in?
No, it's a great question, and I don't want to necessarily call it a pandemic. It is definitely something that's been on the rise over the last 5 years. When you look at 2020 origination, so let's say their first year of tax and insurance was 2021, all the way to 2025. From a insurance perspective, we've seen an increase of almost 65% on average in America of increase in overall insurance. On taxes, we've seen about a 10% increase. While 10% may sound lower on taxes, generally the dollar amount of taxes is going to be much larger than your insurance. So that 10% increase could be really impactful for customers. So on average, we've seen anywhere from an $80 to $120 year over year increase in that customer's T&I, or tax and insurance payment, year over year for the last 4 to 5 years. So that is drastically impacting customers from an affordability perspective, but also from a customer experience perspective. Because you're absolutely right. When that customer gets that new escrow analysis, or maybe they missed the escrow analysis and saw the billing statement with the payment increase, they immediately think that we messed up something, right? We increased their payment without telling them or explaining it to them. And so one of the things, as we started seeing this in late 2024, early 2025, is we said, okay, we have to do something different. We're seeing this on the forefront with our customer service team. We're seeing it in the data that we're getting from our escrow team. We need to be proactive about this. So how do we rethink how we do escrow communication, escrow education? And so we really focused really hard in 2025 on that. We redid our entire escrow analysis. Our prior escrow analysis was probably like the RESPA 1978 compliant version, and said, okay, how do we make this easier to read? But also, how do we explain it to them, not just provide it to them in a pretty colorful picture? And so we redesigned everything from an escrow analysis perspective, letting the customer know up front from an easy to read summary of what happened on that. What was their increase in taxes? What was their increase in insurance? What did we pay the prior year? What did we pay this year? What is a shortage? What is a surplus? Are they getting either one of those? And then how could they avoid a shortage if they wanted to, or they needed to, if they were able to pay it all up front? So that was the first thing. But then also being more proactive every time that we made a disbursement. So letting them know, hey, we're getting ready to pay your taxes. Here's what we paid last year. Hey, we just paid your taxes. Here's what we paid this year. This is a difference of $100 or $200, right? That may impact your escrow analysis. So being proactive before the escrow analysis timeframe was really important for us. And then just making sure that we were able to educate people differently. We all learn differently. Like I talked about, I can read a regulation and memorize it. Other people maybe are easily educated through a video, or are easily educated through a synopsis of an information. And so we did an escrow analysis webinar last year that you can visit. You could still post it out there on our YouTube channel or on newrez.com in the Help Center. And so for an hour, what I consider the foremost expert in escrow, Michelle Wentz, who's our head of escrow, she laid out everything about an escrow. Where do we get the tax information? Where do we get the insurance information? How do we calculate escrow? How to cancel PMI if that's something that you have on your loan as a part of your loan characteristics for escrow. And then we also took live questions. So Michelle and I took live questions from customers, so that way we could answer what's on the forefront of their minds from an escrow perspective. And so that's out there today. We hope to do another one this year with any changes that we may make in our communication plan, or any changes that we may see emerging in the tax and insurance space. To your question of what can customers do to help with these rising costs? One, stay educated, right? Pay attention to that escrow analysis when it comes out. Pay attention to your tax statement that you may receive from your county or your city, or that you get from us when we pay that. And then your insurance, right? Knowing the required amount of insurance is always important, and then being able to shop for that. And so we partner with a company called Matic here at Newrez. They're an insurance broker that will go out to multiple different insurance companies and really work for the customer to try to get them the lowest possible insurance rate, but make sure that they're still maximizing the right amount of coverage for their home. And so that's really important, is being able to know the options that the customers have from an insurance space, and being able to partner with a company called Matic's been really impactful. We've been able to help thousands of customers lower that insurance payment on a monthly basis. And so it's been really impactful for them to be able to lower that escrow payment, where if they had just stayed with their current insurance, they may have continued to go up year over year.
Yeah, I love they brought Matic into that, because yeah, that is a super powerful way that we are always bringing that to the customer as an option for them. Look, it's like you say, we want to have surprise and delight experiences with our customers, our team members. Everybody wants to wake up and have great interactions with folks and leave people happy. At the same time, we are in a business where there is hardship, and people find themselves unable to make payments on a loan in some cases. And there's a whole process around that and support that we provide. So can you talk about what does that look like from your team members' perspective, and of receiving those kind of calls from people that are in need, and how do we mitigate that? And what are the options for customers who find themselves in that position?
Yeah, I mean, no matter where you're at in life, you're always going to have some level of a hardship or distress, right? And whether that be a customer that's had a death in the family, or potential divorce or separation, or just something that's happened that we see every day on the news, that potential layoffs and stuff. So people go through unemployment. We want to make sure that we're here with them, not only in the good times when they're performing and refinancing and either upgrading or moving to a different part of life through retirement. We also want to be there in the tough times. Our motto in our loss mitigation team, which is the customer assistance team that helps all of our customers in some level of distress, they want to be an umbrella in the storm. Our loss mitigation logo actually includes an umbrella, because that's one of the things we want every one of our loss mitigation teams to really think of. Is every call is going to be that umbrella that you can help a customer that's in the storm, and be able to understand that their specific information, right? Being able to talk to them about their reason for our delinquency, understanding what's really driving that, what they're able to afford, what their monthly income is, what their monthly household expenses is, and then coming out with the best solution possible for them right then. And a lot of times, which we're really happy about, that we're able to do that through a forbearance and then a deferment or a partial claim or a modification that potentially could lower that amount and then spread the term out over a longer period. Those are going to be some of the best options. Really proud of the work that my loss mitigation team does. On average, we have a resolution rate of about 16% on a monthly basis. So, just think of easy round numbers. Out of 100,000 loans, we're more than 60 plus delinquent. We're able to cure 16,000 of those every month through working through completed deals. And so the team really cares about being able to provide great workouts, the smart workouts that are going to be sustaining for long periods of time, and really understanding the individual behind that loan number to know what's best for their situation. And then obviously what's not always easy is not every situation ends with a loan modification. There could be potential hardships that require some change of life. And so being able to work with customers on a graceful exit, being able to work with them on a full payoff and market that property, or a short sell, or a deed in lieu, whatever's best for those situations. And being able to do that in an empathetic way, being able to help explain to our customers the benefits of those versus the foreclosure, and being able how that impacts their credit, how we can help them with relocation assistance to have a fresh start in a new place. Those are all really hard conversations to have, but really important conversations to have, because we really do care about those customers, and we will be able to provide the best solution for them possible.
Yeah, I love that imagery of the umbrella, because a customer who's in that position, there's bigger things, there's broader things going on in their life that's creating, and we can help in this one way that maybe makes other things more manageable, because typically the mortgage is going to be the biggest investment they've got, the biggest obligation, and it's core to family and all those kind of things. So I just love the fact that you guys think about it that way, that your team thinks about it that way. So moving on, we've talked about the fact of just continuous learning, and I'm the same way, Joshua. I learn something new every single day, and that's part of what gets me fired up to get out of bed every day. Is just, what am I going to learn today, and what direction is the business going to take us? As a leader, you're always evolving as well. And is there anything that stands out to you as a lesson learned, or something new that you're doing as a leader over the last 12 months that you've kind of incorporated into your bag, if you will?
Yeah, one of the things that I've tried to teach myself, and one ways that I'm doing that now is, like I said, I've been with this organization a long time, been here for 12 years. I like to think I really understand processes and what's going on. But again, processes change. And what I always tell my management team, the further you get away from the individual contributor, probably the less you really know what's going on. And so really over the last year, I wanted to challenge myself and my leadership team to really understand what's going on the line level. So then when we're speaking to a process, when we're speaking to what's going on or what we're hearing on the phones, we truly are hearing that. And so what we've started last year is every 2 weeks we have a call, and we pull two random calls from customer service, and we pull two random calls for loss mitigation. None of us are allowed to have heard these before. We hear them for the first time. We get together as a management team and we listen to those four calls. And then we talk about them, right? We talk about the experience that the customer had, the performance that the agent had on the phone with that customer. We talk about the process of how easy or potentially not easy we made it for our agents or the customers. We're able to see their screens. And so we'll also be like, why did they go into that screen? Why did they go into here? Right? So we're able to understand what they're using and be able to maybe get quicker training and coaching out to them. And then also we're able to have checks and balances on the rest of the organization, like payment processing or escrow to say, well, why did this happen? Well, why did this happen? Right. And so really challenges us from what I call the view of the customer or the voice of the customer, because we're listening to those customers live and we're able to hear from their perspective how we're doing, their perspective about our process or our communication. And so it's been really impactful. It started out really rough. A couple of my team members maybe felt a little beat up because it always starts off with, well, Jason, how did you feel about that call? And generally that never starts out really well, but we really enjoy it now. It's helped us understand the voice of the customer so much better. It also helps us understand what our agents are doing on the phone, what systems they're using, and potentially how we can make their jobs better from a back office function as well. It's definitely my favorite meeting every 2 weeks. My teams come to love it as well, but it's a management routine that I think is needed because it not only helps us from a customer perspective, really challenges us on the process and the technology as well.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so important to be able to receive that kind of unfiltered feedback, if you will, whether it's a phone call or from team members, and be able to accept that for reality, even if the something's not factually correct. That's how it's being perceived. So we got to be better. And like you say, the more detached you get from the front line, the more kind of distortion I feel like there is in that feedback. So even for myself as a leader this year, I've really recommitted myself to doing small group huddles with frontline team members and pulling out surveys and just calling the customer and asking them more about it. And I just find that one, you get much clearer, specific, and actionable feedback, but also people appreciate it. They recognize that as a leader, you actually care, like you're actually connected and want to hear what people say. I can't say how many times I've gotten that feedback from people of just how much the phone call means to take the time. So I think it's an awesome kind of leadership practice that we
And
can
it
all get better at.
and it gives us the opportunity to celebrate, our teams as well, right? And so every time we listen to a call and it's a really good call where the agent really did everything they were supposed to, went above and beyond. Here at Newrez, we have a system called Motivosity where we can send kudos and it posts it on a board publicly where everybody can see that this person got kudos. We're able to give some money to them as well as like a spot bonus as a part of that. And so every time we have a good call on that biweekly call, we're able to, I'll go out there, I'll put it on themselves. So that also will spread, right? It's contagious when they see that because then they're like, oh, well, maybe my call will get pulled next and I'll get some kudos and stuff. So it
Right.
also just allows us to not only become better and get good feedback and lessons learned, it also gives us a way to celebrate people as well.
Yeah. Love it. Well, this has been awesome. I have one last question for you, and you don't have to mention a specific name if you don't want to, but as you've heard kind of throughout, we're very interested in leadership and hearing about people's journey with that. So, who's the most impactful leader in your career and why? How did that person make such an impact on you and your journey?
Wow, there's a lot of them there over time, both past and present. I've been very beneficial to have some really great leaders that I feel not only cared about me as somebody that reported to them as an employee, but also as a person and a human being. And so, I think the biggest one for me that was impactful, that taught me a lesson, was probably the boss that I had talked about at my prior job where we started the law office.
Mhm.
Going to him and having the conversation with him about potentially leaving the organization and going somewhere else, and knowing that would be hard for him because I had helped build the organization and I knew everything from an operations and I built the compliance and I played such a big role for him there, but him selfishly saying, no, I think that you should take, that's a bigger role for you, I think that's going to set you up for a bigger career. That was really impactful for me, and I would say that was what I always wanted to be able to go forward, is pay that again, is like never hold somebody back, always champion them to learn something new, try something new, and if there's a better opportunity, make sure that you're be able to support that. And so for me, I've had a lot of great leaders past and present. Some of the ones I have today are fantastic and lifelong mentors that have helped me and continue to grow me today, and I know they will in the future. But I think the biggest impact was that leader, because it was just so selfishly knowing that it would be hard for him and the leadership team to lose me, but also be able to set me up for what ended up being the greatest position in my career.
Yeah, and not knowing who that individual is, that they or I can feel that they were a great leader because they obviously created that kind of trust with you where you can even have that conversation, because so many people, they have another offer or an opportunity and they're afraid to talk about it with anybody. And I think all of us want that opportunity to talk to somebody, I think, as leaders, and either to provide counsel of, hey, that opportunity exists here, or what can we do about it? Or to unselfishly, like your leader did, say, you know what, you actually should do that. That's a great opportunity. And I've had a couple of those conversations over the last year with people who had opportunities that were fantastic and what they probably needed to do in their career, as much as I hated to lose them for our team. So yeah, that's awesome. All right. So Joshua, we've gotten amazing intel from you today. Thank you so much for all this time. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you feel like team members, customers, partners should know about?
No, all I'd say is hopefully you've heard I care about this company. I feel like a lot of us built it, and I think there's so much opportunity here. We're continuing to grow. So, continue to check out everything that we have on our career site. If you're interested in servicing, feel free to reach out to me. Happy to have any conversations there. But at the end of the day, really proud of the organization that we built, really proud of the experiences that we're creating for customers, and really look forward to the next few years of what we're going to do from a technology perspective, but also how we're going to continue to assist customers through various different market cycles.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Man, this is an all-timer. This is one of our best we've had. So thank you, Joshua, for joining us today. We'll have all of these available on Res Hub if you're interested in that as a team member, as well as on YouTube. So check it out, learn more, and have a great day. See you.
Thanks, guys.